Masato opens the story exhausted from endless overtime as an office worker, coming home drained each day to collapse on his sofa and wondering whether this grind will shape the next 40 years of his life. In his second year, he worked as an on-site engineer at a corporation. His heavy workload forced him into unpaid overtime he could not avoid. Strict rules at his workplace control employees, and his hands-off boss only makes the toxic environment worse. One by one, workers collapse from exhaustion, and when they end up in the hospital, the boss cuts their wages. Outside work, people judge Masato for not having a better job. Although it was the only company willing to hire him, he adapted to the hardship over time. Over time, his sense of purpose fades. Tending his plants with a small daily watering gives him comfort, a gardening hobby he picked up in his first year at the company during his darkest moments. This now gives him a reason to keep going. That night, I was completely spent after work. On TV, he watches a commercial showing happy farmers harvesting crops. Their joy is inspiring him to start a small home garden to feel the same happiness. Now he notices one of his fruits is nearly ripe. Spotting a cherry tomato with unusual markings, he wonders how it will taste. He was worried it might be sick and harm his other plants. Impulsively, he pops a stray tomato into his mouth and swallows. He freezes and asks himself why he did it as his mind goes blank and his awareness fades. Panic spiked over whether it was toxic or caused immediate harm. Everything goes dark before you can figure it out. Opening his eyes, he finds himself in a forest, not at home or in a hospital. A floating status window appeared to his right, showing his full name, a new job, various stats, a list of skills, and a note that he had eaten a reincarnation fruit. All his stats set to 5 look uneven and off. His job shifted from office worker to farmer, leaving him confused. He finally realizes he has been reborn because of that automato. At first, he thinks it's a hallucination caused by the fruit. To check if it's real, he walks to a tree and hits his head against it, but instead of waking up, he only feels pain and assumes it's a fluke. After repeatedly banging his head against other trees and feeling too much pain, he finally accepts that this is reality. He has truly been reborn. He stops short when a tiny girl, no larger than a fist, appears smiling in front of him. She flies toward him excitedly, causing him to fall to the ground in shock and wonder if she is a doll. She says she can snarl the reincarnation tree on him before he can respond, and a robotic voice in his head says he doesn't dare deny it. Confirm that the little girl is a dryhead and now a companion. At that moment, he feels refreshed and his energy is restored, so he quickly checks his status window, confused and surprised by what he sees. Masato's stats had quadrupled, and he felt the change throughout his body. Realizing the numbers were genuine and not just for show, he knew this was not a dream or hallucination, but a true reincarnation. At that moment, the dryad named him the reincarnation tree and asked him to follow her. Visibly confused, he told her he wasn't like that and had only eaten a fruit. That looked like an unhealthy tomato. Before he could fully process what was happening, more dryads arrived after hearing the first ones and sensing the reincarnation trees sent toward him. They gathered around, excited to greet him. Meanwhile, his system sent a flood of notifications, confirming he received all the dryads in your purchase. Masato opened his status window and saw his stats in exponent form because they were so large, and realized he had tamed exactly 112 dryads. Each of them multiplies their 5 main stats by 4, which throws the numbers wildly out of control. After trying to calculate it in his head, he decided it wasn't worth explaining the math. He tried to make sense of everything, knowing neither he nor anyone else would likely grasp it. Masato decided to treat the situation as a hallucination for now and checked his status window for clues about others who could help. He found a flight skill that, because his intelligence stat was so high, could launch him into space if he used it. Only 10 MP remained, and using all of it might kill him. I see a search for a safer approach, and a dragon appeared in the sky. Sensing danger, he stepped aside quickly. They narrowly avoided an attack that scattered the dryads, who seemed unharmed. Masato was still trying to understand what was happening when he saw the dragon attacking him. The chipped claws showed it had hurt itself more than him during the sneaky attack. This gave him the idea to have the dragon fly to human civilization. First, you needed a way to negotiate. As the dragon opened its mouth to gather fire for an attack, Masato wondered if he could counter it and checked his skills, finding 2, barrier and spell break. It gave him the confidence to stop the dragon's breath attack with his current powers. With no other option, Masato used spell break on the dragon, and it growled in surprise. A dry head translated its shocked, unbelievable, amazing message that she could understand the dragon. When he asked us if she could translate for him, something unexpected happened. He gained a new skill called automatic language translation, so here is a look at this new power. Masato heard the dragon complain that a human had stopped her breath attack. He could now understand her words clearly and realized he could speak to her directly. He asked if she could hear and understand him. The dragon was stunned that a human could speak her language. Masato realized the translation skill worked both ways and quickly told the dragon he had a request. He asked her to lift him into the sky. He knew he wasn't good at negotiating, but he hoped his direct play, supported by their ability to communicate, would convince her. She acknowledged that she could understand him. The dragon refused to grant a simple human request. Scoffing at Masato's plea as laughable, she read the next fiery breath attack and calmly halted it with spell break. He called her noble and urged her to help someone in need, but she ignored him completely and left no room for negotiation. Stopping Masato's search for a skill to counter a dragon, he considered using force for 2 reasons. At first, he was defending himself. Even if it failed, the dragon had attacked first. Second, if he ignored it, the town he was aiming for could be in danger, and he kept reviewing his skills. He found nanofire, but worried it would turn out as he'd feared. That fearsome power could incinerate either the dragon or the forest. Normally favoring gentler spells, he had no choice in this dire moment. Without delay, he cast nanofire. A towering pillar of fire shot into the sky, piercing the clouds and narrowly missing the dragon. The spell showed shocking power despite its simple name, leaving the dragon stunned. Planing Masato had used the mythical last atomic inferno. Wielding Masato, he insisted he had only used nanofire because he lacked the MP for such a grand spell. The dragon accused him of dishonesty. Nanofire, noting what she heard, still saw the full scale of the final atomic inferno cast without chanting. A technique Masato didn't know existed. Recognizing the drag on this meant he had to use his magic for an advanced spell. Spotting her fear, he decided to take advantage of the misunderstanding. Crying out, she said that power not from fire could end the world. Once proud, she now cowers, panicked by his magic. Masato noticed the dragon's speech become overly polite, and despite her huge, intimidating form, she now looked pathetic. Being able to fly was enough. He asked again if she had taken skyward, and she readily agreed, eager to help. He told her not to overdo it, especially on a long trip. She laughed off his concern, writing that she could cross the continent in half a day, which relieved the Sato when he realized her speed matched a passenger plane. Climbing onto her back, he held on tight as she launched into the air. Soaring high, she didn't notice when he accidentally knocked loose a scale, lost his grip, and fell to the ground with a loud crash, only realizing when she heard the thud. Masato felt no pain thanks to his enhanced stats, and the dragon quickly apologized for not noticing the loose scale, a small stroke of luck in a bad situation. Masato asked her to stop the bowing to avoid hitting nearby dryers. What interested him more was the scale itself. She told him it was fine because it was already loose and about to fall. To apologize, she gave him the scale, noting its high value in human markets. Masato gladly accepted it, planning to sell it later. Then recall the skill and the activated storage. Open a portal that absorbs the scale, registers it as the Crimson Dragon Scale, and instructs him to chant item box to access or retrieve stored items. Finally, Masato and the dragon left the forest. He rode on her back as they flew through the sky. While scanning the area, they gazed at the horizon and spotted farms on the land's outskirts. At that moment, he felt he could finally have the peaceful life he'd always dreamed of in this new world. He couldn't explain why, but the feeling was strong. Sim saw a town and asked the dragon to hover above it. She refused, saying it wasn't wise, and suggested landing near the town gates instead. They did, and Masato thanked her for the ride. She said she was glad to help and would assist him any time in the future. Masato heard that, but he had no way to reach her again. One dry offered to stay with a dragon, and when he asked if she could still communicate with the others from afar, she confirmed she could. He was satisfied, so he let her stay while the other dryads followed him, all of them green and happy. After dismounting, Masato and the dryads tested their communication, and the dragon confirmed it had received the message. She said she'd return home and urged Masato to contact her when he needed her. He promised to call her for help later. After she left, he walked toward the nearby town, followed by hundreds of dryads. Arriving at her cave, the dragon paused and asked the dryad to watch, while she tried something inspired by Masato's high flight. Her claws began to glow as they turned into human hands, and her body changed into that of a young girl. Instead of asking how her human transformation magic appeared, she asked that it be dried. Masato saw the town guards panic and packed their belongings after the dragons left, convinced they would die. Realizing the misunderstanding, he called out to ask permission to enter the town and to calm them. However, they asked for his family crest. It left him puzzled, and he asked what a crest was. When he clarified, he said he wasn't a noble. The guards were surprised because they had assumed he was one from his speech and from driving off the dragon, so they took him for a noble knight, and Masato wondered if his way of speaking really sounded noble. He realized it was probably his automatic language translation skill. He converts his polite Japanese into the noble speech of this world. Trying a casual tone made the guard agree he now sounded like a commoner. It felt odd, but was better than being mistaken for an ability. He told them the dragon wasn't a major threat and said a single enemy shot scared it off, after which it gave him a ride. The guards were shocked to learn a dragon had been used as transport and that a simple nanofire had frightened it. Misunderstanding him again, they gave Masato a ring when he asked how to enter the town. Explain it is a magical tracking device and that you can remove it after registering for a guild ID. Explain that it was required for public order and misado, likening it to a GPS, and thank them. Before he entered, Masato thought the guards could see the small winged dolls around him, but the guards looked confused and asked what he meant. The dryads grinned, and he realized the dolls were invisible to everyone else. Entering town, he went straight to the guild the guards had told him to visit to get an ID, and as he walked the streets, he soon found the agriculture guild. Amazed to find such a place so quickly, especially after once working himself to exhaustion, he stepped inside, feeling a peaceful life might be his fate. Where a friendly young woman greeted him and asked how she could help. When Masato asked if this was the place for an ID, she confirmed it and said she would need his ring after issuing the card. Someone then asked if he was sure about joining the agriculture guild, and Masato confirmed his decision. Believing it could benefit his new life, she gave him a form to fill out with his details. He waited for his ID, relieved that an address wasn't required, and she soon called his full name, giving him his agriculture guild membership card. He then asked curiously which part of Shindo Masato was his surname. She guessed Shindo was his last name and Masato his first, so Masato. He admitted he came from a place with different naming conventions. She was asked if it seemed odd, and she chose to call him Masato. Being Japanese, he felt a little shy about people using his first name casually. She reminded him about the 1,000 guild registration fee, saying he had to pay it before she could take his ring and finish the card, and Masato nodded, promising to gather the funds soon. He then asked where he could sell the dragon scale Heimwery had dropped. His explanation that the Adventurers Guild, acting like a pawn shop, handled such materials prompted a puzzled look from the girl, who wondered how he had obtained such a rare item. When he asked about the average monthly cost of living for one person, she said there were about 30,000 others and assured him a dragon scale would easily cover the registration fee. If one other equaled 1 yen, Masato thought he could get by with enough money. At the Adventurers Guild, the staff panicked when they saw the dragon scale and needed to measure how much dragon it contained to appraise it, and found it contained 0.5 grams per milliliter. The result was shocking, revealing it came from an ancient dragon because the draconian level matched the dragon's rank. It left everyone stunned to learn the dramatic flaming crimson dragon was ancient. Focusing on the measurement, he said 0.5 grams per milliliter seemed small. Employees loudly corrected him, insisting it was a huge amount. Valued the scale at 1 million ether. Masato returned to the Agriculture Guild to pay the registration fee and discuss buying farmland, and the receptionist, seeing his intent, asked him to remove his ring. Confirmed they offered land for purchase. Cautioned him not to rush into buying farmland, noting that renting cost 54,000 other per acre per year. Since buying cost 900,000 per acre, I advised him to start by renting because it was far more affordable. Renting land appealed to Masato because it let him test different crops on a large field without spending much. When he told the receptionist he would pick the rental option, and she asked whether he was ready to select a location, he showed him a booklet of available land for the season. He chose tomatoes and soybeans, crops he grew in elementary school. He paid an initial 220,000 to others. Thanked the girl for her help. She asked whether he was a wanderer and warned that running a farm alone would be hard. The Masato reassured her that he had help, even if the dryads didn't grasp his meaning. After sorting out the tasks and renting an apartment, Yu gazed out the window, planning to start farming the next day. In just half a day, his dream for life began to take shape. The next morning he went to his rented farmland, far from town, but on the outskirts so he could call for help if needed. When the dragon arrived, he couldn't see her until he used his enhanced vision, which let him spot her so they greeted each other. She thanked him for the dryad's invisibility spell that let her approach the town unnoticed. She relieved Masato by telling him it worked, and she asked if he could write back right away. Flying over the farmland, he cast an illumination spell to mark lines on the field before landing. He asked the dragon to mix soil in certain spots with the special material they had prepared, and she agreed eagerly. She uses her storage magic to send a cloud of black fog across the fields. Masato had asked her the night before to make his wood ash by burning a distant grassland. Later, after it was dried, it was judged the finest ash sheet seen. Curious, Masato asked why it was so good. The dryad explained that the dragon's dung was nutrient-rich and boosted crop growth, an effect Masato had not anticipated. He stretched out his arms to begin making furrows, but when the dragon asked whether furrows were the heavy patterns in human fields. When he offered to do it, he realized her claws could help. With quick strokes of her claws, she raked the field into neat furrows and misado. It's amazing that a creature so huge can handle such delicate work so well, and it must have a very high dexterity stat. I'm lucky I met her in this world. Then asked her to make an even number of furrows before they stopped for lunch. After field work, the dragon suggested they introduce themselves properly. She's tired of being called just dragon or identified only by her species. Miss Otto realized she was the flaming crimson dragon after storing her scales. She confirmed this, admitting it embarrassed her and that she wanted a better name. Masada thought it odd to introduce herself if she disliked her name. Playfully, he suggested Duraman because it sounded like dragon, but she refused, saying she was a girl and wanted a shorter name. Masato, surprised at not knowing her gender, began listing girl names in his head. At last, Masato suggested the name Himawari, and the dragon's face lit up with relief and joy. Finding the name unique but liking it, she asked for his name. Masato introduced himself formally, asked her to call him Masato, and she understood. They continued working in the fields, and as he planted, he suddenly realized his dexterity stat was infinite. Wondering whether this let him toss seeds perfectly, he tested it and was amazed. Each seed landed eagerly across the field, and the dryads praised him, giving his seed throwing a perfect score. Wary and stunned, he asked how he had managed such a throw. She noticed something odd about the seat's path. On closer inspection, each seat was embedded exactly 20 centimeters deep. Surprised that Masato had such a remarkable skill and feeling a bit guilty for making her feel inferior, he changed the subject and told everyone to start watering. The dryads offered to make it rain and explained how they could do it, so Masato entrusted them with it. They began to pray, and soon a cloud formed over the field. It started to rain, prompting Masato to note its predictability and wonder what other mysterious skills he might uncover, so he used his appraisal skill on the cloud. They realized it was the Dryad's Blessing Rain Cloud, a rare cloud that appeared only when Dryads prayed. Its water enriched the soil and boosted plant growth. Misadu was astonished that such a powerful farming ability existed. After thanking him, Wary, and the Dryads, he told the dragon to head home. And I'm worried, saying to call her anytime. Leaving Masada, only the harvest remains now that planting and watering are finished. Farming was going well, and Masada felt he could live here in peace. He missed Japanese food, even when making a simple dish. This world was missing key ingredients such as soy sauce, vinegar, miso, mirin, and rice. Considering growing soybeans for soy sauce and miso, he realized he could make a dish right away. In the mountains the next day, Masato quickly knocked out a charging boar, then worriedly scolded him. He reminded her he wanted a mountain with wild vegetables, not animals. Confused, she noted that he handled the boars easily anyway, since they were there to gather ingredients. To make chuan mushi, a savory egg custard, he already had eggs, but the dish needed mountain vegetables and mushrooms, which was why he'd anxiously asked him to bring them there. While thinking about ingredients, he considered whether the boar could enhance the meal by storing it in his storage skill. Noticing something in a nearby tree, he identified Japanese wild parsley and oyster mushrooms. It felt like a great start until Himawari called him over excitedly. She claimed she'd found tasty mushrooms. Masato immediately recognized them as poisonous flyaguric mushrooms. contains toxic substances such as evotinic acid and muslimol. That left him briefly speechless, then someone urgently warned her about their danger. Himawari, unfazed, told Masato not to worry. They reminded him his vitality stat was high and pointed out the mushroom's surprisingly bold flavor, making Masato hesitate. Remember that although the fly agaric was toxic, it is a botanical acid. A boosted mami, reportedly 10 times stronger than glutamic acid, was nibbled by some mushroom fans for the taste before they spat it out. If its toxicity could be ignored, it would be an amazing ingredient. Masato decided to collect some, and Himawari agreed it was a smart plan, dryly saying she'd found something tasty. This led Masato to use his family's strongly scented citrus fruit. Perfect for chewing and as a soft topping, he had gathered everything he needed. He told him about a worry they had. She said she wanted to try his dish, and Masato thought it was a great idea. When they returned to the city, they forgot her invisibility spell, the guards panicked, and after calming the chaos, Masato turned to cooking. Ingredients are laid out: processed wild boar meat, oyster mushrooms, a skillfully crafted seasoning, and market eggs. Use citrus and wild parsley for chawanmushi. He beat the eggs and made 3 times as much broth. Use alchemy to turn any double boar parts into seasoning and dissolve them in water for the broth. In a bowl, he mixed the broth and eggs, smoothing the mixture by popping surface bubbles. Place the meat and mushrooms in a cup, then pour the egg mixture until the cup is 80% full. Since steamers weren't available, he filled a frying pan with water, placed the cups inside, and heated them. Lacking a foil, he used barrier magic instead. After 10 minutes, he turned off the heat and tilted the cups to see if the liquid was clear, which meant the dish was done. Place a citrus slice on the rim of each cup, finishing the chawanmushi. Before stepping onto the balcony to tell him where it was ready, she hesitated while he wondered how she'd eat such a tiny portion. Because of her size, it looked difficult, but Himawari asked him to wait. She glowed brightly and used her magic to turn into a small human girl. Leaning softly on the balcony, she asked Masato how her human form looked. They left him stunned but relieved, so they could now share the meal. I'm worried I'll be seen as proud. They sat at the table where Masato served the dish. Both say thanks before eating. Even so, he stopped her from taking a bite. They told her to squeeze the citrus on first to boost the flavor, and they did so before tasting. The dish was delicious, and Masato praised its perfect texture. The parsley and mushrooms added texture, while Himawari savored the smooth, rich flavor. Masato's eyes filled with tears as he realized this was exactly the taste he craved. The moment he ate the mushroom, he froze, overwhelmed by an unprecedented umami intensity. At last he understood why mushroom hunters sought poisonous varieties. Quickly, he used detox magic to neutralize the poison and felt grateful that it let him safely enjoy the flavor of this world. He noticed the poison didn't affect him anyway. Both of them will worry, but keep eating and chatting happily for the rest of the meal. When they finished eating, Himawari complimented Masato's cooking. When he asked if she wanted more, she eagerly said yes. Then he asked if he could set aside a portion for later, which pleased her, and Masato promised to do so next time. After seeing her off, he realized that with a little creativity, he could enjoy food even more in this world. The next day, with free time, Masato went window shopping and saw a steak seeker she would later use. Their high price convinced him he could save money by making his own from his field's produce. At that moment, Carol from the Agriculture Guild appeared. He thanked her for her earlier help and asked why she was there, and Carol said she was shopping for her home garden. Because it was the guild's day off, she offered to guide him through the store as a guild staff member, focusing on her customers' success. Masato gladly accepted, which pleased Carol. Masato realized this world held many surprises and unknowns to explore, and Carol showed him magical tools. Includes a seed invasion barrier to block weeds and a sprinkler tool for easy watering. But he told her the dry land's blessed rain was sufficient. He claimed he could control rain clouds because others couldn't see the dryads. He needed an explanation and left Carol stunned by his unexpected reliability. Then he spotted a familiar can of liquid fertilizer and was surprised to find it in a non-industrialized city. Places where ammonia production for fertilizer should not be located. Someone wondered how it was made, and Carol overheard. They explained the liquid fertilizers were dungeon drops, surprising the solder with the idea of a gain. He said growth enhancers, costing 5,000 other per can, sped up crop growth by 5 days per acre. Seeing Masato's disappointment, she asked what was wrong. He admitted he had expected an instant harvest like in video games, and when Carol asked for clarification, he explained. She said enhancers were used only during harvest season. Masato concluded the cost outweighed the small benefit. Carol added that only wealthy farmers could profit from them. Masato had a dragon scale, so she suggested he collect dungeon items himself. An idea sparked, and later in the dungeon, he buffed the sword to make it sharper and more durable. With only 10 MP, he was limited to physical attacks. They wondered how much effort it would take to gather growth promoters. Just then, someone arrived. She asked why he brought her to a dungeon, since he thought he could handle it alone. Masato said he'd appreciate her hunting, whatever she found to keep him safe. He also asked her to join as a reference, which hurt her feelings because she thought he saw her differently. Her dragon presence drove the monsters away and made things easier for Masato. Someone then said the adventure would go deeper if no monsters appeared, a plan Himari could not escape. Opening his status window, he activated a skill, figuring an elevator in the dungeon would be handy. The system confirmed the construction as the dungeon began to shake. Masato and Himawari watched something rise from the ground, revealing an elevator with wires running up to the ceiling. When the door opened, Masato's master-level architectural skill had somehow worked. This left him worried, stunned, and confused, while Masato casually said he had built a lift. She grumbled that he was changing the dungeon structure too easily. They rode the elevator down until they encountered enemies. On the ATAF floor, a massive bear-like monster blocked their path. When Masato asked if it was stronger than him, I know he said it wasn't. Realizing he had a 1 in 100 chance to beat it while it rested, Masato swiftly struck its neck, killed it instantly, and a card dropped. Baffled, Himawari asked what had happened and what Masato had done. He replied that he had just hit its weak point, then examined the card. An unstable summoning card for transport with high-capacity storage magic. They asked if only bears dropped it, and I clarified that monsters of the same level could drop similar items. Masato wondered whether she had meant the crocodile monster that appeared, but she could not answer because he had already moved. He precisely slashed the crocodile's neck, prompting her to complain about his speed and a dropped item, a small vinyl house ideal for plant growth. Masatov was surprised by how useful it was. It was as if it could grow an alkyl decay mushroom. Guessing they were mushrooms, Himawari explained the cured white and age disease, one of the 5 deadly epidemics. She learned her mother had it and only 300 years left, crushing her hope. She said growing alkyl calm mushrooms could save her mother, getting Masato excited about cultivating them. Still needing a growth enhancer, he asked if the mushrooms had spores. Himawari replied that they were common but hard to grow, and Masato mentioned bacillin and bacteria, Earth's deadliest poison. Pressing on, they found that not even a swift mimic monster could keep up with Masato. Dropping a dubbing card that copied items from the dungeon, Himawari noted all floor monsters had been defeated but lacked the growth accelerator. They moved deeper into the dangers on the 81st floor. This sin confronted a snake monster and was quickly turned into sashimi. He dropped a familiar object and shocked Masato. A growth accelerator that can speed up 3 months' growth and adjust timing through dilution. Unlike the store's version, it does not allow instant field harvests. That makes me a very spotted glass lizard. Body-native glass hung from the ceiling, gleaming, and when Masato asked about its powers, it shed explosive fragments of glass-like skin, she explained. He thought about setting a trap because fighting a glass creature with his sword worried him. Since the lizard already knew they were there, Masato had to fight, easily cutting it into pieces that fell, oddly leaving him relieved. Henry Murray bragged about his swords, their sharpness, and his strength. Meanwhile, the monster dropped a glass shoe from the Cinderella clinic that could permanently transform the wearer into a beautiful woman. Masato said the glass shoe would turn a man into a beautiful woman, not into a handsome man. Seeing it was useless, decided to head home. I was wary and asked if they would explore further because taking the lead seemed wasteful, and Masato clarified he wasn't serious about adventuring. They parted ways outside the dungeon. I'm cautious, so I asked him to contact her when he visited the vinyl house. Later in the city, Masato decided to sell unused items like the glass shoe. At the Adventurers Guild, the same staff member who had handled his dragon scale recognized him. Examining the shoe, they suggest it could be Cinderella's legendary, fleeting sparkle. She stepped away to examine it, and soon Masato heard shouting from the back. Staff returned to confirm it was a top-tier item that could affect relations among nobles and royalty. She asked where he'd found it. He said it came from the dungeon's 81st floor, and she pressed him for more details. Using a magic lie detector, she confirmed he was telling the truth, surprising Visato, who had not expected her to doubt him. A man with an eye patch appeared after overhearing talk about the 81st floor. They asked whether Masato was the one who returned from the dungeon and knew about a strange new structure there. Masato asked whether they meant the elevator, explained that he had built it because moving moments between floors was too bothersome. His casual reasoning shocked them, even though they found his actions outrageous. When he saw it, he wondered if he should remove it. Instead, the guild proposed opening it to the public. They offered him a 3 million annual license fee instead. Although Masada had no problem with them using it, he doubted the guild could afford it. Asked them to transfer the fee and the payment for the glass shoe through the agriculture guild. He sighed in disbelief at how things had unfolded and, with his wealth growing, went shopping. He checked his status window and saw it was more balanced now. Has 25,500 HP and 4,500 MP. Relieved that his MP had risen, he knew he would not run out of magic while farming. Out in the fields later, he thought about how to use the growth accelerator. The dryads offered to mix it properly and told him to pour it into the rain clouds, which to his surprise contained inlets. He poured without asking why. Heavy clouds drifted over the fields. When it rained, the enhancer and saplings grew at an astonishing pace, like a sped-up video. The plants grew so tall they needed support, so Masato used gravity control to hold them up since there were no support pillars. The plants matured, producing nearly ripe tomatoes, soybeans, and edamame, which impressed Misadu, who chose to harvest half the crops. Listing the dryads and the help they gladly provided. He bought support pillars for the tomato plants and assigned dryads to steady each plant as he installed them. Because the growth enhancer needed 4 days to recharge, the dryads worked hard to help Masato. He recommended waiting before harvesting the rest of the crops. 4 days later, they harvested all the tomatoes and soybeans. Masato returned to his apartment and checked his item box, finding 20 tons of tomatoes, 892 kilograms of edamame, and 984 kilograms of soybeans. Seizing the chance, he used his appraisal skill to examine them and was stunned to discover the tomatoes were everlasting. Divine Eye black beans are soybeans that contain a potent anti-aging ingredient that stops aging with just 100 grams per week, have perfect flavor, and improve vision twofold while granting telescopic sight at that dose. They matched the tomatoes with superb flavor, leaving the Sato stunned and unsure what was happening. When he tasted a raw tomato, its rich flavor made him keep eating, proving its quality. Realizing the item box kept them fresh, he kept some for himself and sold the rest at the guild. At the guild, Masato laid out his goods for sale, surprising Carol with a huge harvest. I couldn't believe a novice gathered so much in 2 weeks. He attributed half his success to her because she mentioned the dungeon. He showed her the growth accelerator he had found, which reduced growth time by 3 months. Carol froze, unsure whether he said minutes or months, and chose to ignore it. Instead, focus on sorting the harvest. Using her sorting telekinesis, produce floated into neat, organized piles. Masato assumed the skill would sort crops by quality. Carol marveled at how every item was flawless and free of disease or damage. An old man came up and asked if these were legendary vegetables. They were examined closely while Masato played down their specialty, which made the old man panic. They shook him and demanded how he grew them. Masato replied casually that he used ordinary seeds. Carol said she showed them to him, leading the old man too. It had to be a legendary dryad fairy who helped him, leaving Masato speechless, and the dryad he brought even more shocked. Though he jokingly said the dry had helped ease the tension, Carol, puzzled, said dry reminds her of fairy tales. The old man doubted legendary fairies could be friends with humans, unaware the dryads were standing right there. But Masato thought this made sense, attributing the crop's quality to the dry climate and the enhancing effects of its blessed rains. The rain boosted plant nutrients above normal levels. Carol said Misada's produce required a special merchant. She kept him confused until she explained that exclusive merchants handled high-quality goods separately to ensure fair pricing. He noted his tomatoes could extend lifespans because of their unique effect, and he explains that Misada's crops with those effects could not be sold alongside common goods. Hiring an exclusive merchant for a large fee would protect him from dangerous people by keeping his identity hidden. Masato agreed, confident in his abilities, but he still told the dryads to warn him about any suspicious people near his home, and one dryad promised they'd handle it. The old man said he had asked the guild master to arrange for a reliable, exclusive merchant. A hooded man named Cole appeared just as Carol promptly recommended him as the ideal choice. Cole introduced himself as a traveling merchant with a skill called mystification and reassured Masato that he could be trusted. When Masato asked about mystification, Carol said it lets you turn into mist and move freely. Cole realized his younger sister had a rare power that a criminal group was targeting. After capturing some members, he activated his mystification skill, slipped through the mist, and triggered an alarm at their base. Moved by the intense tale, Masato wanted to help and recover. This is called owning valuable items that merchants prize. He greeted Cole and handed him a card to say thanks, which surprised him. Carol eagerly identified it as the Wyvern Circulation card, and the elder said only 5 such cards existed, relics of an ancient civilization. Cole agreed it was a top transport asset, usually used only in a national crisis. That prompted the Sato to ask if it was true, and Carol warned that using it could make him famous in history. After finalizing the contracts, they said goodbye to Cole to ensure his safety. Masato sent a dry head to accompany him. Assigned 75% of profits to Masato, 20% to Cole, and 5% to the guild, a fair split given Cole's risks. Before Masato asked Carol to sell him wheat seeds, Carol agreed She was puzzled because wheat was out of season, and though she pointed this out, Masato had his own ideas. He headed to his field to grow what he wanted using growth enhancers, planning to farm with the dryads and craving tempura. Summon Haim Wari to discuss clearing the field for alcaldica mushrooms. First, she had to address the withered crops, and the dryads told him to trust their rain. They left Masato confused until they urged him to observe. Summons rain clouds that dissolve dead plants on contact. The rain revealed another benefit in dry conditions by decomposing dead plants and returning them to the soil, so compost was not needed for the next planting. Masato, who praised the dryads, was astonished. Soon Haim Wari arrived, asking if he had cleared the field. Prompt him to choose a spot for the greenhouse using the item. The small package shook and turned into a greenhouse, which Masato found handy, inviting him inside and when asked if she had brought alcaldic mushroom spores, she pointed to a nearby stone and said the spores had been spread there. Masato was baffled because he saw nothing until she urged him to look closer, and then he noticed spores clinging to the stone. Masato activated his microscope skill and saw tiny alkyl decommissioned spores coating the stone. Seeing they were everywhere, he asked him if he should worry or just cultivate them as they were, and she confirmed that was correct. When he stepped into the greenhouse, the system asked him to confirm using the spores to grow a plant, and he agreed without hesitation, placing the stone in the center. The system told him to wait outside while the greenhouse adjusted, and soon the interior transformed. Living and dying weeds made Masato realize the greenhouse was filled with toxic gas at high heat and pressure. Identify the Hemori verified as ideal for alcaldica mushrooms. Still, Mass Adam had to go in to apply the growth enhancer, and I know you're sure he'll be fine. Skeptical of her confidence, he tested the place by throwing a metal drum at the entrance. He watched it flatten and instantly dropped to his knees from the extreme heat. Himawari agreed no human could survive inside. Masato considered his next move. Himawari suggested using an autoheal skill and noted the low oxygen meant he would have to hold his breath. Activating autocare from his skill list, he ensured survival and locked his HP to prevent total health loss. I'm worried, watch him when he comes in and tell him to be careful. As Masato stepped in, dizziness hit him as the gas overwhelmed his body's defenses against the intense heat and pressure of an environment unlike the outside. This made him wonder if his support skills and high vitality stat were keeping him going and what would happen if he lost either. No time to spare, he could only hold his breath for a short time. Using his microscope skills, he spotted the spores instantly and rushed to the rock. While opening the growth enhancer, he noticed more spores nearby. Those too seemed present from the start, so he chose to cultivate them. After a while, Masato left the greenhouse safely, relieved to have made it out. Asking him where and how long it would take for the alcaldica mushrooms to grow and fruit. She replied 1 year and 3 months. Masato used the growth enhancer and realized 4 cycles remained, so the mushrooms would be ready in 16 days. They kept Himawari confused until Masato explained that their growth enhancers would significantly speed up the process. This allowed them to cure her mother's illness sooner, delighting Himawari. It was reported that she gathered the remaining medicinal ingredients, while Masato vowed to create a special cure for her mother. Meanwhile, in a cave deep in the forest, a frail woman with horns coughed every week. Her sickly appearance and horns marked her as Himawari's mother, and soon after, Himawari and Masato head to a village by the coldest sea on earth. Masato thanked her because the freezing temperature would help his next task. Cooking tempura, you have completed the wheat planting dungeon. While waiting for the alcaldaka mushrooms, he decided to gather ingredients for tempura. Seeing seawater under the ice, he jumped, his worries pushed aside. Clenching his fist, he smashed the ice and instantly shattered the thick layer. I was stunned, unable to believe that the legendary unbreakable sea ice had shattered for the first time ever. Masato asked why she had brought him to such a place. She looked worried and told him to simply say the seafood was abundant there. Neither noticed a tentacle quietly approaching Masato from behind. Himawari said no one had ever fished in that sea before. Before he finished speaking, Masato vanished. A tentacle wrapped around him and dragged him under. His face brightened as he gazed at the colossal squid beneath him. Its massive eye glared. Acting quickly, he used flight magic to burst out of the water while the tentacle still held him. I'm worried because I saw what appears to be a monster lurking below. A creature appeared and Masato said it was quite a prize. Having come so far, he decided to haul it in. Using flight magic, Masato began dragging the enormous beast from the water. The squid fought back, whipping its other tentacles. Masato pulled free and dodged those strikes. He remembered that striking the base of a squid's head could stun it. Not sure the tactic would work, Masato pulled the creature toward him anyway. The giant squid lay helpless in the air. A hard chop hit the base of its head just above the eye and knocked it out instantly. Masato didn't hesitate and used storage magic to stow it away. I was worried. It was bewildered and shot. Because the squid was only half dead, storage magic only worked on fully dead creatures. Masato explained his storage, considered the paralyzed squid dead because the definition of death was vague. Himawari was amazed that Asato could bend even the rules of storage magic. She felt small compared to him. Masato didn't understand what she meant. Instead, it used flight magic to dive underwater because that had worked before. Plunging deep into the sea, he was surrounded by many creatures as schools of smelts and horse mackerel swam close while he moved to grab a few. A large fish suddenly appeared behind him, scattering the smaller fish, and he was surprised to see it was a tuna. Spotting his chance, Masato pulled his sword from his item box and swam toward it. He made a precise thrust and instantly caught the tuna. Planning to catch more fish, he spotted a shrimp, wanted tempura, and decided to catch some. After a while, Masato surfaced with a bountiful haul. I was amazed. Masato agreed and asked her for a ride to the market to have the fish processed. At the harbor market, the shopkeeper refused to process the fish because of loyalty to their fishing boats. Masato nodded and decided to try somewhere else. The store manager stopped him and asked to see more of his catch. Masato showed the tuna he'd caught, and the manager and his employee were struck by how plump and fresh it looked. The manager said they sourced only from trusted clients, but Masato's tunas were better than their usual stock. He offered to process it if Masato let them keep part of the fillet. Masato asked whether they were sure. The manager offered to adjust the fee based on the amount, and Masato thanked them. The manager figured Masato had found a great fishing spot. Masato said he'd also caught other fish there and asked if they could process them. Opening his item box, he pulled out a giant squid tentacle, leaving the manager stunned by its size. Masato wasn't sure whether it would be hard to process. The manager asked that his storage magic be examined closely. The manager noticed the giant squid's ears and eyes had a bluish tint. They identified it as a kraken and were astonished that Masato owned such a creature. Masato explained calmly that he had chopped and paralyzed it, and the manager doubted whether he was even human. Masato was puzzled by the intense reaction. The speaker said they were wary and explained that the kraken was a legendary squid. The manager thought it could be processed and eagerly begged Masato to let them handle it, as kraken was a rare delicacy. After a few hours, they processed the tuna, creek, smelts, and mackerel, and the mackerel was done free of charge. Masato expressed gratitude. Shopkeepers were even more grateful. Masato said he had another task, and now, someone timed taking it into the nearby sea, and Himawari was puzzled. They drove to the waterfront. Masato picked a spot, and Himawari asked what he was doing. Facing the seawater, he cast an advanced alchemy spell. Not surprised, I was worried Masato was doing something wild again. Powdered grains shot up from the ocean and formed a white round ball. I'm worried, so I asked if it was salt, and Miss Adu confirmed, which made me question her concern. I'm suspicious he was using alchemy to save on salt, but Masato said he was just avoiding carrying cash. Himori scolded him for treating alchemy so casually and said he always used too many ingredients. Mesa then remembered something and asked her to help with a task. Emma Worry asked what Mesa needed. Misada asked her to gather hops for a project. Soon I saw he had returned from the fields with the hops he'd asked for earlier. She showed them to him and asked about his plans. Familiar with Sato, she assumed it was another wild scheme. Masato conceded she was right. He planned to make soy sauce, wheat flour, and beer, and had already picked up yeast from a bakery, securing most ingredients for a tempura meal and homemade beer. Seeing his expression, Himori knew he was scheming again. She eagerly said she wanted to try it all, but Masato told her to wait because he wasn't done. From the dungeon, he pulled a dubbing card. Curious and worried, I asked what he planned to duplicate. Using the card, Masato copied a greenhouse. Asked what he planned to grow, he avoided a direct answer. He found something. They added a drop of growth enhancer, and it took effect instantly. At Masato's grave, a plant grew very large. I was surprised to realize he had asked what it was. Masato casually said it was for soy sauce. She was surprised it could be used as a seasoning. Masato said he still had a few steps left to finish it. Then worried, he asked him to come to town. At a realtor's office, a young woman asked what they needed. Masato said he wanted a vacant lot. She gave him a catalog. Curious and worried, I asked why he needed it. Masato said he planned to build a factory with all the ingredients he had gathered. He was excited to use his master-level architectural skills again. After browsing, he selected a lot that cost 3.2 million acres. The women asked if he needed a loan or a guarantor appointment and said he could use an item as collateral. Short on cash, Masato decided to apply for a loan. Masato handed over a card and received a thick, cute service collateral. The women gasped when they saw it. Holding a wyvern circulation card, one of only 5 in existence, she was stunned that Masato would use such a rare item to buy land. It was his only option, he explained, but she hadn't expected anything so valuable. Meanwhile, Himawari and a nearby dry had shown up on phase. Masato noticed him worrying after he appeared oddly proud, which puzzled Masato. The Wayman group was flustered and unsure how to store the card securely. Next, Masato and Himawari went to the borrowed land, where Himawari asked how Masato was making the seasoning. Raising his palm, Visada activated his master-level architecture skill, and a bright light filled the town center. He planned a factory where the first floor handled drying and husking wheat, and the second milled flour. The third is used to produce soy sauce, and the fourth is used to brew beer. He was grateful that his research in food manufacturing helped him during job hunting after graduation. The factory equipment and processing details remain vivid in his mind. A building appeared on the empty lot in an instant. Worried, I tried to stay composed, thinking she was used to Masato's wild abilities, but seeing the new one forced me to restructure. Confused, she shouted while pointing and asked what it was. They entered and Masato saw that each floor matched his vision exactly. His preparations were now complete, though he remained baffled. I worried and asked if this was what heat meant. Masato confirmed they would proceed after the harvest in 2 days and asked her to return to the field then to see something special. Still puzzled, I know he asked what he meant. 2 days later, Masato gave the Hilda mushrooms a 3rd dose of growth enhancers. As a worrier, I was shocked by how massive they were. Masato noted they were now visible to the necktie. I was worried, hoping her mother could wait a bit longer. Next, they inspect the wheat field. Masato asked the dryads to sprinkle growth enhancers, and they complied eagerly. The wheat grew fast and looked healthy. Masato was surprised that it was already ready to harvest. On closer inspection, Masato found the wheat was exceptional. It had a very low glycemic index and carbohydrates the body could absorb without insulin, preventing blood sugar spikes and making it safe for diabetics while improving its taste. Masato was stunned by the weak yet remarkable qualities. I know he credited the dryads for their help. Thanking them for their efforts, Masato joined them as they went to the factory. Himori was thrilled to finally use the strange machine she had seen on the 1st floor. The wheat had been dried and husked. I felt worried and amazed, and I asked if simply feeding it into the machine would be enough. Masato said it was automatic, but she did not understand what that meant. He made sure she was all right, then said it was time to put everything away. After that, he stored the wheat, which totaled 7 3 tons. He had expected only 5 tons per acre. Himori suggested the surplus came from the dryads. Filled with despair, Masato began to process the ingredients, placing them on their respective floors. While the machines ran, Himawari kept washing, looking confused, and asked whether they really just waited for it all to finish automatically. Masato confirmed. Himawari's guess was right. She doubted they were really making food. Masato clarified the purpose of each floor, saying the fourth is for fermenting and filtering the beer. The third produces soy sauce and has a maroon tank and a compressor. The second mills flour with roller mills. The first is for drying and husking wheat. The machines automatically dry and dehusk the wheat. I worry that the operation scale is excessive. She thought they were just cooking and did not see that Masato had built groundbreaking equipment. He wondered if she cared only about having fun. She was advised not to stress about the process and to look forward to the tasty results. It would all taste delicious, he promised. Masato realized the soy sauce malt was ready. The girls became excited as they imagined delicious dishes. Their enthusiasm faded when Masato said the malt would take a year to mature. Noticing their disappointment, he suggested a skill that could solve the wait time issue. Using a skill called temporal tuning, he turned the liquid in the soy sauce malt bottle black. Shocked, the girls asked whether it had spoiled. Masato calmly explained that the dark color was normal for aged soy sauce. I understand being worried, but I was stunned that such a potent spell was used just to age food. It felt absurd since temporal tuning normally shifted time by minutes, not a whole year. Masato still doubted that the limit applied because his method worked fine. I am wary, and the dryads were speechless as he asked whether his actions were that shocking. I know he said that with that power, he wouldn't need growth enhancers anymore. Masato clarified the difference, saying growth enhancers boost plant growth, while temporal tuning only speeds up time and can make plants wither if misused. I'm worried about splitting the mixture into 2 containers. One step remained, he said, and because the other portion was tasty, he put some aside. He heated the raw soy sauce to finish it. I'm worried, and a dryad rushed forward, but Miss Otto stopped them. Note another preparation and an external task. At the empty lot, he casually used advanced alchemy and bottles formed from the ground. I'm wary, and when so many appeared, I asked where they came from. Masato said the bottles were for the product on the 4th floor. He applied temporal tuning to the water in the fermentation tanks to make young beer, then cooled it and applied temporal tuning again. Once filtered and bottled, the beer was ready. I worry, and Amaze said she had never seen such a drink. Masato assured her it was top-notch and told her to look forward to it. He asked the others to help get the wheat flour from the 2nd floor. It was time to cook. Jane Worry, now in an apron, said she wanted to watch closely to learn the secret behind Masato's renowned cooking. Masato and Himmler Worry began preparing snacks together. Masato mixed eggs, cold water, and flour into a batter. Then coat the fresh seafood and the store-bought sweet potatoes. Once the oil was hot, he fried the ingredients and flicked batter into it to form crispy decorative shapes. He boiled the edamame too. They arranged the pre-sliced sashimi loosely on plates. Masato added a final touch. Spray the spirit mediator, a special mist that lets fairies dine with humans. The meal was complete. I was worried. I had never seen such food before. Everyone gathered around the table, eager to eat. Their first bites were all it took. Masato Fatha sashimi was the best he'd ever had. As a wary eater, I noted that the seasoning paired perfectly with the fish fillets, describing it as a mold extract. Masato corrected her and said it was soy sauce. Tasting the Kraken meat, he was surprised by how delicious it was. They said both the sashimi and the tempura were incredible. Himawari was astonished. She had never expected a meal like that. Masato offered one last special day. He set out a beer bottle and 2 clear mugs, then boiled it a mame. I'm worried, unfamiliar with the frothy drink, and even the dry adloped seemed puzzled. Masato said proudly that the drink was beer, an alcoholic beverage that paired perfectly with Adam Mommy. Worried, I took a quiet sip. Her eyes widened at the delightful taste. It was unlike anything she had experienced, with ideal flavor and aroma. Masato noted its smooth finish. He thanked her for gathering the hops. Worried, I decided to gather more, and Masato was grateful as he began growing them. They tasted the rich, flavorful edamame. I know he couldn't stop eating, and said it melted in her mouth. Masato was thrilled and never expected to enjoy such food and beer after being reincarnated into this world, and he was pleased he had built the factory in. He prepared everything and was eager to drink more beer in this life. A bit tipsy, he apologized to Heimwery for cutting the evening short. Wobbling, he collapsed onto his cot and pulled a blanket over himself. James Worry stood stunned while the dryads gave him a perfect score. Once a corporate employee, Masato never. I had dreamed of this life, but now I felt true happiness. I'm aware I tried waking him. Thanks to his vitality, Masato woke refreshed the next morning with no hangover. He found the world's magic convenient and noticed Maori was gone. A dryhead said she left the night before, after failing to wake Masato, who had passed out. Noticing the dirty utensils, Heimwery used her purification skill to clean them as a thank you for the meal, leaving everything spotless. Filled with excitement, she flew off to find more hops. Hearing this from the dryad, Masato understood. He wondered if he'd worked himself so hard he worried the dragon. Yet the sight of her enthusiasm and the spotless kitchen, he realized she truly loved the food. Seeing his fondness for beer and soy sauce, Masato was convinced the world would share her enthusiasm. He decided to sell some to the guild, along with his crops. The guild gave him a cold reception. Carol invited him in but glared as she said she needed to discuss something with him. Masato grew uneasy under Carol's intimidating gaze and agreed without protest. Inside, he asked cautiously what she wanted to discuss. Carol answered by revealing a huge pile of gold coins. Explained that they came from the Adventurers Guild to sell the Cinderella shoe. It totaled 4 million, and even Masato was stunned. Carol admitted she had never seen so much wealth and asked about the only item. Masato said the shoe was prized by nobles and royalty. To protect his privacy, he would arrange the sale through the Agriculture Guild via the Adventurers Guild. Nobles brought complications, so he avoided them. The guild's secrecy put him at ease. Carol understood and admitted she was surprised but pleased by Masato's trust in the guild. He said he was there to sell crops. Shocked to learn he already had another harvest, Carol sent him to the warehouse and called an appraiser. The veteran appraiser arrived to inspect Masato's crops. As expected, he was impressed by the diabetic-friendly wheat and called it a remarkable find. Skeptical and annoyed, he asked Carol if she was selling ordinary seeds. Carol insisted those special seeds weren't available on the market. Masato hoped they wouldn't argue. The old man realized dryads were real and were helping Masato. The dryads were shocked their secret was out while Masato chuckled quietly. Carol confirmed the new wheat would be sold only through select merchants, and it proved revolutionary for diabetic nobles. Before Cole arrived, the old man told Carol the story in a secure way. Masato asked them to give Cole something when he arrived. He pulled out more cards like before and told them Cole could use them freely. Carol and the old man were stunned. They got 9 legendary wavered free ride cards. The old man ordered Carol at once to lock them in the guild's most secure vault. Masato said casually he could get those cards from the dungeon anytime. Seeing their tension, he eased the mood by showing new products, seasonings, and alcohol made from his crops. He invited them to taste the products to see whether they would sell. Masato surprised the old man by making new goods, and the old man was eager to try them first. His mood lifted, and Masato felt relieved. At the dining table, he brought out the seasoning and suggested they try it on the fish fillet. Carol noticed the seasoning's aroma was unique, combining sweet and savory notes. The old man recognized it, judging it to be a. Masato's special soy sauce is rich in ultra-flavonoids that repair DNA and prevent cancer. Carol realized she could sell it as a health food. Masato's achievement did not surprise the old man. Masato did not realize the soy sauce's health benefits. He urged them to taste it. Carol and the old man sampled the fish fillet with soy sauce and chewed quietly. Amazed, Carol had never imagined sashimi could be so delicious. She thought countering salt with lemon or olive oil worked best and said the soy sauce would be a big hit. The old man agreed and called it revolutionary. Masato was thrilled that soy sauce and sashimi fit so well into this world. An old man noticed the squid and asked about it. Masato said casually that it was kraken from the long sea, partly out of shock that a calamity monster could be food. Masato said it was tasty and planned to catch more. The old man was shaken when Masato treated such a beast like ordinary ingredients. Carol tried the squid and praised its flavor. The old man felt lucky to taste such a rare dish in his life. Masato was pleased the soy sauce worked. He then served the beer. A compliment will reveal it to be an anti-aging beer. Rich in ultrapolyphenols that slow aging, up to 633 will reduce daily alcohol harm, making it healthier to drink from one's 20s and extending life 5 times. The old man wished he'd found it sooner. Masato offered a detox spell to deal with drunkenness that affected their work. They drank the beer, and the old man was impressed by how smooth it was, unlike anything he had tasted. Carol enjoyed it too, relaxing with chilled drinks. Masato remembered that this world lacked refrigerators. Carol felt like she'd just eaten at a fancy restaurant and thanked him. As the appraiser, the old man felt privileged, and Masato promised to ramp up production. When Carol asked where the soy sauce came from, he replied. It was explained that it came from wheat, soybeans, kaji, and fermented microorganisms. The old man asked eagerly whether these microorganisms were a new species discovered by Masato. Carol was impressed by his knowledge of biology and thought he was unmatched in every field, but Masato said they had overestimated him. Carol hesitated to share such valuable details. Masato said he didn't mind because he wasn't trying to monopolize them. He asked when Carl would return, and Carol said he'd be back in 3 weeks. Masato promised to include more wheat, soy sauce, and beer in the next batch. They were asked to buy more wheat and soybean seeds. Having extra funds, he paid off the land loan early. At the realtor's office, she was surprised to see him. Hearing he had come to pay, her eyes filled with tears. Overjoyed, she begged him to take back the wavering card while holding its dresser. Masato wondered whether it was really that tough. Now the factory land belonged to him, and a friend asked about his next steps. Masato said he would plant the new seeds and asked for their help. The dryad agreed. Using his skill, he prepared the soil and scattered the seeds evenly across the field. Masato's display left the dryads astonished. He pulled out a familiar can. The dryads knew it was time to use the growth enhancers and volunteered to apply them. The enhancer solution rains down from their clouds. Masato said that was enough and, noting the late hour, suggested they go home for dinner. The dryads were thrilled that evening had come, but Masato was still heading home. Buying eggs, garlic, tomatoes, and wheat flour at the market made preparing dinner simple tonight. At home, a dry gesture to tell him to be quiet. He entered the living room and saw Himori arrested on the couch. Seeing the dragon resting so peacefully, Masato realized he had been giving her too many tasks. He'd hit him, remembering his grueling corporate job. He did not want to create a harsh environment like those toxic work environments. He asked the dry head to set up quietly in the kitchen to avoid waking her. Masato announced he would make a no-water tomato pasta. The dryad, curious, asked what it was, and he told her to watch him work. He mixed the flour and salt, then added the water, eggs, and olive oil and stirred until well combined. He used temporal tuning to speed up a task that normally took 2 hours, and when he sliced the dough, the noodles were ready instantly. Advanced alchemy allowed him to craft a pot. Add the minced garlic, whole tomatoes, and noodles directly into it. The ingredients' moisture cooked the noodles, so no water was needed. Adding tomato flavor to them. I'm worried and awake, see Masato cooking. She greeted him with a bright smile, and Masato, surprised by her sudden awakening, thought she would be exhausted. The delicious aroma woke her up, she said. Himori said she was fine after a short nap, noting dragons rest only once a year. Relieved, Masato admitted he worried too much. That same dinner was almost finished, and he asked the girls to sit. Excitement rose when she saw the pasta dish before her. Masato added cheese, herbs, and a spirit mediator spray to the dish. After everyone took a bite, Himori said the tomato-infused noodles were delicious. Masato said his special method gave the noodles their perfect texture. Seeing this world had no pressure cookers, he considered selling them. They enjoyed the meal, and Masato suggested boiling edamame and having beer. I'm worried. Thanking him for the tasty food from his farm. Masato remembered something and asked her to check the farm with him, saying the mushrooms were almost ready to harvest. Himori went to Masato's farm to see the mushrooms. He was missing. Hearing his voice, she realized he was sincere. Trapped in the second greenhouse, where the koji had grown out of control. I was wary of him and asked what he was doing. Masato thanked her for rescuing him and said he was making more soy sauce. He apologized for the trouble and showed her the mushrooms, and I could tell he was delighted. Masato checked about moving them, and she agreed since they only needed special conditions while growing. Masato felt relieved that the mushrooms had finally matured after worrying him, and his eyes sparkled as he gazed. The dark mushroom at Owl Hill is a key ingredient for treating specific illnesses. Imura gently picked one rests, looking slightly sad. Thanking Masato, she said one mushroom was enough to make a strong medicine. Masato decided to use the remaining mushrooms wisely. He asked how she'd make the medicine. She said she was wary but would mix the prepared ingredients in precise amounts and handle the rest. Masato pictured a witch stirring a cauldron, but instead I'm a worry who wore gloves. Begin by using the pestle and mortar and handling the lab equipment. Carefully studying a test tube, she moved forward. Masato was surprised because it was not what he had imagined. Her skillful work reminded him of Time Warrior's talent was easily forgetting she was a dragon. He thought that if he had taken his university experiments seriously, he might have gotten a good job. A foul smell snapped Masato out of his thoughts, signaling danger. He quickly cast a wide-range detox to cleanse the area. Deadly to humans, the gas was twice as potent as a typical hazardous agent. Masato shook slightly and urged him in a worried voice to be cautious. Apologizing, she noted the dragon's rumium toward it. Masato judged it too risky, so he used his master-level architectural skill to build a fume hood to remove harmful gases and airborne organisms. He told her to work inside it. I know he apologized again and complied. Relaxed, Masato trusted his high stats to protect him, but he still prioritized safety. 3 hours later, he and Mary finished the medicine for her mother. She asked Masato for a drink from the factory. Masato poured a beer into a mug for her. I'm worried she drank it right away. They looked satisfied. Masato wasn't surprised, thinking beer was like an energy drink for a dragon. Masato asked whether she was going to see her mother right away. She confirmed the invitation and asked Masato to join her to meet her mother, who lived in another world as a mushroom grower. Masato agreed, eager to explore more places, and asked someone to take him. Masato and he will worry and leave quickly. She soon arrived in the mountains where her sick mother lived. Though the area was freezing, Masato's high vitality kept him comfortable. Traveling alone, he could have gotten lost without his skills. Walking, he noticed glowing trees, one lit in rainbow colors. While appraising it, he discovered it was a gaming mummy fur, a globe that reacted when someone with over 1,000 numbers approached, made from ancient dragon genes, and that reproduced faster than normal trees. Masato was stunned that an ancient dragon made it, and Haimori said her mother made it, and the attempt to replace the rare Owl Hill Doki mushroom failed. Her mother had run many experiments, showing us other failures, like a coral-like bush and odd bees. Masato realized the Maori's mother did not passively wait for death, but kept experimenting. I called out a warning, and they reached a cave. Entering the room, she said her mother was inside. Masato was shocked to see a woman lying on a cot. Jame Wari's mother stirred and opened her eyes when she heard his voice. She sits up slowly and fumbles with her hand to touch something. A worried daughter took her mother's hand and said she had returned after being away for a long time. Her mother smiled warmly, but Masato noticed her eyes were unfocused and realized White Mage's disease had taken her sight. Himawari was confused, remembering she had last seen her mother as a dragon. Her mother said she changed into human form to make a particular device smaller, and Masato praised her when he found it. This was an ancient dragon artifact used to purify magic, treat White Mage's disease, and extend a dragon's life by 10 years. Masato fought for 10 years, a short time for dragons. Haimwari's mother said it was the best she could do. I give my mother's hand a wary squeeze, and when asked what's happening, she said she had developed a miracle medicine to cure herself. Pausing briefly, her mother said, clearly shocked. She asked kindly how Humarari had done it. It worried her that she had followed the theory. He then introduced Masato as the person who grew the Owl Hill dark mushroom. Masato apologized for not introducing himself sooner, saying he was a farmer. I'm worried Mom was surprised that a human farmer could grow such a rare mushroom. Henel Worry acknowledged that it was surprising, but urged her mother to take the medicine first. Hearing the seriousness in her voice, her mother took the bottle, opened it, and drank. Right after she swallowed, she felt better, color returning to her eyes as she said she could see again. Swiftly, she grabbed a syringe, drew her own blood, and shook it to check the results. A negative test confirmed she was fully cured. Masato was stunned by how quickly the medicine worked. I know he hugged her mother tightly, crying with joy, and her mother apologized for worrying her while gently wiping her tears. Masato let out a deep sigh of relief. Haimori's mother looked at him, thanked him sincerely, apologized for doubting him, and said he had essentially saved her life. Masato replied that she was very welcome. Relieved to have her sight back, she realized he had tamed dryads, a nearly impossible feat. Unable to grasp his extraordinary abilities, she found it incredible that someone could do that and could not measure Masato's immense magical power or how he grew the mushroom. She wondered how her daughter could have met someone like that. I'm wary and it's hard to explain. Masato said he got lost in a forest after a series of events and met her by chance, and she and Worry guided him to town so their friendship grew without conflict. Her mother knew the chance meeting had saved her life. Remembering Sato's claim to be a farmer, she asked again and he confirmed it. Claiming to have the perfect gift, she asked him to follow her outside. They stepped outside and froze, Masato and Himawari staring with wide eyes and open mouths at a landmass floating in the sky, and Masato asked what it was. Inawari's mother explained it was the floating continent, his reward for growing the Owl Hill dark mushroom, and urged him to accept it. Imwari asked her mother if she had ever owned anything like it, and Masato asked how he was meant to use it, so Imwari's mother instructed him to step onto the floating land, and Masato leaped onto it. She told him to channel his magic into it, and when he opened his status window, he saw he had 10,500 members. He poured 5,000 into the land at once. A bright magic circle glowed beneath his feet. The floating continent began to tremble. It then suddenly expanded greatly. Masato couldn't see the edges. Stunned and speechless, he stood in awe. Someone asked if he was all right, and Masato confirmed he was but admitted he'd used too much magic and wondered if he'd accidentally buried a mountain in the cave. Himwari's mother reassured him it was fine and he could check again later. Masato jumped off the continent, and the land below shrank from view as before. She explained that the floating continent expanded internally by 1 acre for each magic point, while its outside size stayed the same no matter how large it seemed inside. According to her, the land was ideal for farming and would help improve the Sato's skills. He wondered whether it was really okay to accept such a powerful gift. Worry's mother said she had created it to grow the rare mushroom the owl held, but after her recovery, she no longer needed it and wanted Masato to have it. Masato thanked her. There was another gift. As a reward, she gave him a seat from the world tree, perfect for someone who had stained dryads. The dryads were thrilled and urged Masid to care for it. Masid was astonished to receive something so extraordinary. Himawari's mother described the world tree's deep bond with the dryads. The fruit is boosting their growth and strength. Masato didn't fully understand what she meant by greater heights. They chose to plant the seed using a growth enhancer. Instantly, a small sprout appeared, shocking him and Worry's mother. She said the tree should have taken 1,000 years to bear fruit, and I worried when Masato proudly noted he had used a growth enhancer for just 3 months. Masato, puzzled by her pride, said they had a long way to go but vowed to tend the world tree for the dryers. He thanked either him or his mother for her generosity, but she said it was nothing because no gift could repay him for saving her life. I'm worried, and the dryads became excited about the world tree. Masato couldn't believe he had received such an incredible gift. Ideal for his dream of growing a variety of crops. Excited about the future, he still felt worried. Explain this to Carol the next time you buy seeds. Days later, he worries his mother, taught Masato, as he tries to clear his mind and focus. He was instructed to picture the island he wanted. Masato closed his eyes and concentrated deeply. A shape slowly emerged before him. My name is Wary, and the dryads watched closely. Within moments, a small island appeared. I'm a worried mother, and I confirmed it worked. Explaining Masato could create islands that are invisible from outside the continent. Items made on the island would return to their normal size once off it, no longer affected by its odd spatial effects. Himawari's mother said the island's land could become anything Masato imagined. Black liquid burst from the island like a fountain. I know he feared something had gone wrong, but Masato reassured her it was exactly what he intended because he had pictured an oil field. I was worried because I was unfamiliar with oil fields. Masato reached out his hand, using advanced alchemy to turn. Pour some of the black liquid into clear plastic bottles. Himawari was confused why the dark liquid looked like see-through containers. Masato explained they were plastic bottles. A worried mother was astonished that Masato's first creation on the island was a container, showing his knack for unexpected choices. Imori proudly said she wasn't shocked at all. Masato teased her for looking surprised earlier. She was thrilled to have successfully made the bottles. Himawari already knew the bottle's purpose. Masato then visited his factory's 3rd and 4th floors, applied time manipulation to the beer and soy sauce, and declared everything ready. I figured they'd fill the bottles with the products, Masato confirmed, saying they needed to package them for sale. After the oil field ran dry, Masato used the island's remaining soil to make many glass bottles. He asked Hanwari to imagine him making them in a city lot. He realized digging those holes in a crowded place would have caused problems. As she watched the production, she began to feel drowsy. She watched the bottles being filled one by one. In the end, Masato produced 10,555 bottles of soy sauce and both 100 and 2,870 bottles of beer. It added up to about 10,000 soy sauce servings and 100,000 beer servings for sale, which was more than Carol could handle alone. A wiper and circulation card stored extra bottles, saving space. Masato thanked Carol for the valuable card and explained everything to her. He told her not to call the appraiser and confidently invited her to try the products, saying one was a seasoning and the other a drink. Carol noticed the odd container and, since she had never seen one before, asked what it was made of. Masato explained it was a plastic bottle. He handed her an empty one to examine. Carol found it soft and heard it crinkle. Masato said it wouldn't break when dropped. Carol appreciated how useful it was. Because she could only sell it for coal, she decided to keep it safe until his return. Masato thanked her for taking care of it. Carol asked about his next plans. Shocked, Masato requested 7 hectares of wheat and 3 hectares of soybeans. Carol urged him to slow down, saying it was too much for his 1-hectare plot. Masato saw her surprise because she didn't yet know what had happened. He said he had been given a special piece of land by someone he knew. Carol feared he had been misled. Masato assured her it wasn't so. He described the floating island in detail, concluding that he now owned 50 hectares. Used to Masato's baffling feats, Carol nodded. Masato asked if she was really okay with that. Carol guessed he had more land and asked if he needed anything else. Masato asked for 8 hectares each of carrots, potatoes, and onions. Carol recorded the order as burdock first and taro second. After that, Masato canceled his land lease and got his money back. They could spend less on new seeds. They stepped onto the floating island, which was so vast they looked like tiny ants from above. I returned warily with the wood ash Masato had requested. The dryads vowed to pray earnestly for rain to bless the land. Masato thanked them for helping as Haimori. She flew around, scattering wood ash from her dimensional storage, while Masato carefully tossed seeds with his special technique, and the dryads prayed for rain to water the fields. With the fields ready, Masato encountered a new problem. The land had become so vast that he didn't have enough growth accelerators to cover it. To get more, he had to go deeper into the dungeon. Masato went to the dungeon and enhanced his sword with several magical boosts. After thanking the dryads for their help, his intelligence stat detected the sword, but the line, "I'm wary," was missing. Hidden in the dungeon's elevator, she stayed out of sight. They complained about being at depth level 90. Masato, confused, had planned to start deeper at level 160. Him more worry admitted she couldn't handle that level in human form and asked if Masato could buff her or if she should stay outside, her anxiety showing. Masato searched for the best buff, timed her cast with the enhancement, and her fear vanished instantly. Feeling powerful, she asked about the skill. Masato explained that it boosted all her abilities. They last even when he's not around and are useful in emergencies. I'm where I gain confidence. At level 160, I know, he said, how easily they progressed. In fact, the boss was a giant octopus. He felt no concern about the menacing energy from its tentacles, doubting she could fight it in her state. Masato tightened his grip on the sword and charged, cleaving the octopus in two as it vanished upon death. I know he thanked him for the boost, saying she could finally see his moves clearly, and Masato was surprised to be more thrilled about watching him than about the battle. I know, I said she always wanted to see how Masato defeated enemies with a single strike. It occurred to him that there were probably monsters far stronger than those he had once shot. They noticed the octopus had dropped something, and to their shock it was a laptop labeled Super Magic Computer. Masato, stunned, dropped the MacBook and was reminded of his past life as a corporate slave. Unable to believe an item from that life had shown up in his new one, and he muttered, shaken by the reminder of his second chance. Masato feared the laptop's sight had overwhelmed him. He couldn't fully explain his reaction. He admitted it had once been his greatest foe, yet he still saw its usefulness and had high hopes for it. Deeper into the dungeon, a winged figure with flickering eyes and a glowing halo emerged. Soon, Masato faced a humanoid monster called Lucifer of the 9 Divine Trials. Aware that no human should be on this floor, he attacked without hesitation, and the monster fell from a single strike, unable to resist. Amawuri was surprised the battle ended so quickly, and the creature dropped an item called the Imperial Elixir. A potion can make a nation's leader immortal if consumed. A compassionate leader lives forever, while a harsh ruler dies as soon as they outlive their natural lifespan. The elixir works in every form of government. After learning about it, Masato realized it wasn't meant for him. In a land with no single ruler, nobody could use it. Masato wondered why he had been given the item, and Haima, worried, had no words. Masato plans to sell the elixir at the guild later. Meanwhile, the dryads seemed to know something about it. Pressing deeper into the dungeon, the group passed a silent chamber. Masato saw nearby monsters that resembled transparent bears called assassin bears. Quickly, the group hid, and Masato saw their translucent forms. Himawari explained that these creatures had no physical bodies. Visible only during attacks, one-shot kills are impossible. Masato appreciated her being there. Her explanation put him at ease. Trusting his sword, he charged forward. Worried and puzzled, I asked where he was headed. Racing through the assassin bears, Masato felled each with a single strike. Seeing the monster collapse, Himawari eagerly asked how he had defeated them. Masato reminded her he had placed a buff on his sword earlier. Aware of the buff, Himawari thought it applied only to monsters immune to physical strikes, not to bodily foes like the assassin bears. Masato explained that his high-intelligence staff had boosted the buff so it affected all his targets. He worried and found the idea wild, and wondered if Masato could succeed as a blacksmith. Masato doubted it, since few people went this deep into the dungeon, so his swords wouldn't sell. Then an item fell from the assassin bears. Schrodinger's card case held 100 identical cards that were revealed only when opened. The case could never contain mixed card types, and once revealed the contents were fixed. Masato was intrigued by the cards inside, because there was a 5% chance of a valuable Weaver and Circulation card, and a 1% chance of a dubbing card that could boost his items and remove the need for growth grinding. That would let him multiply his existing accelerators without extra effort. I'm worried greed could help, but I doubt it would be that simple. She pointed out the card type was random, and that with 5 cases, Masato's odds of getting his desired card were slim. Masato agreed. Mention the skill that could improve his chances, RNG basis. It was something gacha players coveted for securing their favorite in-game characters. I marvel about how these odd skills could be useful. Masato activated it. Instantly, cards appeared before him. This lets him choose his preferred option from all available choices. Searching for a single card, he picked it, and the skill worked perfectly. That produced a dubbing card, meaning every other card in the case was a dubbing card. Still skeptical, Himawari thought it was mere luck, even for Masato, and then aimed for a Wyvern Circulation card. The next case opened to reveal 100 Waver in circulation cards. Himawari apologized to Masato for doubting his abilities. Masato admitted the outcome was extremely unlikely, only a 0.5% chance. I knew he had begun to trust that Masato's unusual skill was working. Masato chose to turn the remaining cases into dubbing cards. I worry these could amplify powerful growth accelerators. She noted they hadn't found a single growth accelerator, but Masato remained optimistic and expected some to appear on the upcoming levels. The group reached the 161st level. Masato soon faced a monster called the Incarnation of the Servant, a huge eastern dragon gliding across the floor. He was taken aback. Remembering dragons here were usually benevolent made him reluctant to attack dragon-like beings, so he felt relieved that this dragon was different. Masato cleaved the dragon without hesitation, sure of an easy victory. The creature died and an item dropped immediately, and Masato was thrilled to find the one he had seen. A Ranke growth accelerator could advance 10 years of growth on 1 acre, its duration adjustable by dilution, and it had no cooldown. Masato was pleased with its power but slightly disappointed by its limited range, and he knew his field was vast. Not having a cooldown made it valuable. I'm worried they suggested it could also benefit the world tree. Suddenly a huge claw loomed over them. They moved aside quickly. Masato turned and saw another oriental dragon. I wondered if it was the same type, but felt it was stronger. Leaping off the ceiling for leverage, he plunged down and sliced the dragon into fragments. As predicted, it was a one-strike kill. Another item fell onto Masato, and based on its shape, it was assumed to be another growth accelerator. A single application triggered a year of growth across 400 hectares, with adjustable adolution growth, and the undiluted form had a 7-day cooldown. Masato felt elated. Its coverage was 8 times larger than the floating island, and at this rate most of his crops could be harvested instantly after only 1 year's acceleration. With both growth accelerators, Masato could quickly prepare his fields and the world tree. He headed back to the surface, and I was worried and asked if he was done grinding. Masato said he already had the dubbing cards. On the surface, he gave Masato a cautious farewell and went home. Masato, curious, examined his staff. As usual, we were exceptionally high and had grown again during his flight home. He asked the dryad to adjust his intelligence stat. On the floating island, the dryads spoke to the sprouting world tree one by one. Masato realized he didn't know how large the world tree would grow, and he had reserved a 5-meter radius around it, but wasn't sure that would be enough. Masato sent a telepathic message to his mother. With the dryad's help, she said the tree's diameter, roots included, would be 30 to 36 meters, and was puzzled by Masato's worry since the world tree was far from fully grown. Masato explained he had a powerful growth accelerator and planned to make the tree grow so its fruits would ripen that day. Masato's mother was stunned by his unconventional farming methods. Masato told the dryads to blanket the island with rain clouds mixed with a growth accelerator, and to spare the world tree, they left a ring of clouds that covered the island but kept the sapling spot clear. As the rain poured, Masato watched the plants grow at an astonishing rate. The onions were immediately ready for harvest. He instructed the dryads to stop the rain over that section and let it continue in other areas. Masato and the dryads worked together to care for the plants. After they finished, Masato thanked everyone for their hard work. They gathered a huge harvest in one day. Masato checked the totals. 2 tons of wheat, 8 tons of soybeans, 322 tons of carrots, 336 tons of potatoes, 456 tons of onions, 176 tons of burdock, and 704 tons of taro. Surprised by the bounty, he asked the dryads to hold off using the restorative rain on the wilted crops and to avoid the world tree. The dryads reassured him there was nothing to worry about. They said the world tree was unique and thrived even in the rain. To demonstrate, they began to rain on it. Alarmed, Masato urged them to stop and quickly retrieve his magic computer from storage, almost overlooking it. Searching its built-in Wikipedia for information, he felt a sense of familiarity. He typed the terms world tree and restorative ring cloud. The results show that small amounts of restorative rain draw nutrients from nearby areas, allowing the world tree to grow stronger and become fortified. Like training a muscle, Masato noticed the sapling looked healthier than usual. Soon the dryads confirmed they had finished the task. Masato thought about using a growth accelerator on the tree, but let one of the dryads rest if they were fatigued, mindful of their hard work. The dryads insisted they were fine and told Masato to let them handle the task. Masato joined them, and they happily watered the world tree sapling. Instantly, the sapling reaches upward. Its branches and leaves nearly cover the entire island. Masato was worried it might shade smaller plants. He then saw the undersides of the world tree's leaves glowing red and realized that red light was ideal for green leaves to absorb. This showed the tree's harmony with other plants. Suddenly, a beam of light burst from the world tree, drawing the dryads' attention. They danced to celebrate their success. The world tree was already bearing ripe fruit. Masato wondered how those fruits would shape his life in this new world. Joyful dryads picked ripe fruit from the world tree, reminding each other to take only one. Masato had heard the world tree's fruit could connect to the spirit realm, but he wasn't sure it was true. A stranger approached and offered him a fruit, saying it was thanks to his help in nurturing the world tree. Gratefully, Masato accepted the fruit, and then everyone sat down to eat. Masato described the fruit as smooth and delicious like an avocado and tried it with soy sauce. The perfect flavor brought him to tears. He then saw a globe behind him. The dryads glowed as if they were transforming. 12 have turned into cells, gain enhanced abilities to grow better crops, and they develop new plant varieties, while 14 others transform differently and gain special skills in animal husbandry. Changes came so fast during one Masato that it was hard to take it all in. Suddenly, Masato understood that the fruit could let someone reach their peak. The system sent him a startling message. It declared that by his nation's decree, he was now their country's leader. It also told him to use the imperial elixir kept in his item box. At that moment, Masato realized he was now the head of a nation. Remembering that the elixir kept him immortal so long as he ruled justly but would fail if he ruled cruelly, he knew the stakes and considered keeping it for now. Still, Masato felt more intrigued by the self's new abilities as he watched them. They simply gazed back, then began to yawn. They grew restless one after another and settled on the tree branches. Masato was surprised by the shared goodnight and dozed off. The system confirmed they'd switched to NAT mode. Masato smiled, letting them rest, recognizing their hard work and encouraging them to recharge. After a while, he climbed down from the tree and thought about his next move. An inner voice abruptly told him to pause. Surprised to find her awake, Masato urged her to rest more if she needed to. However, the silt said she was just curious. Masato asked her to watch closely, and extending his right hand, said it was his turn to give his all. A magic circle appeared on his palm and spread outward until it enveloped the entire floating island. The island shook and began to expand. A nearby dry-eyed observer was stunned by the transformation. Masato said he wanted to create something. When the dryad asked, "What?" his reply was simply vinegar and miso. His plant needed koji mold and lactic acid bacteria. Yeast would naturally stick to the wheat from the air during fermentation. Relying only on acetic acid bacteria would not produce consistent results, he knew. You tell the story of beneficial bacteria and Honidian testings that you can obtain by dissecting them. He also considered making genetically modified honey that produces ultra-sweet nectar to collect large amounts of bacteria. He planned to use a particular chemical to speed up the process. Next, he would build the necessary containers on a distant floating island. The silt was puzzled when it saw Masato making more bottles. Masato clarified he was doing more than just making miso and vinegar. He came up with another promising idea. Later, he and the self climbed onto the factory rooftop using his unique architectural skill. Masato added more floors to the structure, and new machines appeared that he did not recognize. Excited, she thought he had used them to make miso and vinegar. Masato advised her to explore slowly because the vast space would take time to navigate. The fifth floor was used for mass production. Not sure whether people in this world would take to miso in large quantities, Masato decided to make a small batch for himself. He mixed 2 kilograms of salt, 5 kilograms of soybeans, 5 kilograms of wheat, and the right amount of cagium old. First, he soaked the soybeans in water and boiled them for an hour and a half. Mix in the other components. At Masato's home that night, Himawari woke from a nap and found Masato cooking. He told her to look forward to the meal. At last, he created something he truly wanted. Wary, I thought he'd come up with another clever plan. I asked myself what he was preparing for the special occasion. Masato said he was making a dish using all the vegetables they had harvested. He started by soaking thin burdock root slices in water with vinegar. Masato simmered the taro root to mellow its bold flavor. He put the tougher vegetables into a pot of water. After the onions soften, he stirs in the miso and warms the mixture without letting it boil. Masato announced he had finished making potato mochi and miso soup, served with a glass of beer. Himawari said the meal looked delicious. Everyone gathered at the table and gave thanks. Masato reminded the girls to use chopsticks, following the custom for dishes like this. The girls dug into the potato mochi, their faces brightening with pleasure at the taste. Masato said the sweet and spicy blend and the chewy texture were perfect. The silt agreed, and then they sampled the miso soup. The instant Masato sipped it, a jolt ran through him and a strong sensation washed over him, bringing to mind a map of Japan and Mount Fuji. He remembered the taste of home vividly. Himawari was amazed at how seasonings could bring out the ingredients' flavors so vividly. The silt was amazed that the vegetables it helped grow tasted so good. Masato was glad to see everyone save the meal. Being Japanese, the miso soup made me crave rice. A sudden idea came to him that Seltz's ability to boost plant growth could help him grow exceptional rice. He began picturing himself achieving his dream of producing the finest rice. As the meal went on, I noticed he had a sudden realization. She turned to ask who the self was, and Masato teased her for noticing so late. The next day, Masato and his silt rode on Himawari, who had transformed into a dragon, and she praised his power-up. They noted that it let them reach their destination quickly. Masato briefly felt as if he were on a jet. A group set out to find a rare plant. They tracked down the original rice strain to plant and later enjoyed delicious rice. The search took them deep into a tropical jungle. Upon arriving, Masato showed the girls a picture of the race. Along the way, they ran into a few traps, but also had quiet moments while tracking. Later, I learned he had seen something and went to investigate. She called Masato over. When he saw it, it looked familiar. He appraised it and identified it as a risa, a grass that produced edible starchy grains, exactly what they needed. Masato confirmed it was the scientific name for rice, with every detail matching. A worried person asked whether this was the right plant. Masato said it was perfect and told everyone to collect more. He said that with their new plant breeding skills, they could turn it into a tasty crop. Excited, the jurors dashed off to grab it before Masato could finish. Within a minute, he returned with a massive bundle and asked whether it was enough. Masato assured her it was plenty. Later on the floating island, he planted rice in a small paddy and mixed a growth booster and magic into the water. Himawari was puzzled as he grew rice the traditional way. They still fast when he needed rain or other aid. Masato said this was only the first step. He wanted to sample the rice before improving it by selective breeding. Using his advanced architectural skills, he added 7 floors to the factory. Masato turned the new floor into a place to thresh and polish rice, processed the first harvest there, and cooked enough rice for 3 bowls to share. He said the grains looked small. Someone admitted they were worried. Another marveled that Masato had produced rice, and Masato himself predicted it would taste great, so he hoped it was true and took a bite. The girls tried it too, but the mood at the table soon turned somber. Masato admitted it was only passable. Himawari said it was barely palatable, and someone began to cry, calling it dry and crumbly, like eating a weed. Masato said he now understood what to do next. Himawari doubted the rice would taste good, but Masato insisted it could be done. Next, he recruited the silks to change the rice so it produces larger, rounder, softer grains when cooked. Silence filled the room as she clutched her head. She asked what Masato meant and how to proceed, then realized she was confused. Masato explained achieving flukiness required lowering amylose and increasing millipectin. Feeling overwhelmed, the cell said she preferred studying the periodic table because she enjoyed it more. Her mention of base sequences stunned Masato. Collapsing to the floor alarmed everyone, and he felt like giving up because manipulating base sequences was far too complex for him. Changing DNA components on a whim wasn't something he could do. The thought of delicious rice felt far away now. I was aware, clearly concerned, and asked if he was all right. Masato said he hadn't felt distressed since his corporate days, when he spent hours in front of a computer screen. Thinking back to those days, he remembered his old work laptop. Suddenly, he had an idea. Retrieving the supercomputer, he hoped it could solve the problem. When he activated it, an app with a DNA symbol appeared. The system opened a genome editor and instructed him to hold the organism. He needed to scan it in front of the camera and press enter. Masato lifted a blade of grass, and to his surprise, its base sequence appeared on the screen. Himawari was astonished and didn't know the tool could do that, so the sylph asked what to do next. Consulting the guide, Masato learned they could alter the scanned organism's traits. They found they could adjust attributes such as size, color, and composition. I'm worried because someone eagerly suggested making the rice green and Nalan-sized, but Masato rejected that, saying it would be hard to cook. A slightly larger size could open new options. Next, he focused on adjusting the rice's stickiness and elasticity by changing its starch levels. Examining the rice, he found it had 70% starch with a 95% to 5% amylose to millipectin ratio. It was similar to Japanese rice, so he found it promising. I'm worried and asked why the ratio mattered. Masato said that amylose and amylopectin, both starch components, affect rice stickiness. Higher amylose makes rice less sticky, while more amylopectin makes it stickier when cooked. I'm not worried about what to do with the acquired ratio. Masato called it a good question. They decided to make several variants. Wari agreed, suggesting they taste each version to choose the best for large-scale production. Masato urged them to stay calm as their excitement was getting out of hand. Masato created 4 rice varieties by adjusting amylose and amylopectin levels. Following the silt head's instructions, he selected the file extension and date. The laptop began to glow and small orbs of light emerged. Seeing the glowing orbs, Masato asked if they represented the nucleotide sequence. They were sure of themselves, so she summoned her sisters, who began casually eating the light orbs like snacks. Masato and Himawari stood stunned, watching them eat the worms so nonchalantly. The lead asked if everyone understood, and they all said yes. Masato realized they were exchanging genetic data by eating the light. After finishing the preparations, Masato brought the rice plants to the silks. He asked them to modify the plants, so they matched the 4 variants he had designed on his laptop. The sults cast their magic on the rice, swiftly finishing the task and forming the sado. Thanking them, he said they only needed to plant the rice next. Before planting, Masato used magic to reshape parts of the floating island. Within moments, some fields filled with water and became rice paddies. At first I was worried and puzzled, but Masato explained these were specialized fields for rice cultivation. Using magic, he changed the land and made the soil perfect for planting. Masato and the girls planted rice in the new paddies. Summoning the sylphs, he had them produce their usual clouds. Silt conjured clouds that rained a special magic speeding plant growth, so the rice plants matured instantly and were ready for harvest. Masato was amazed to see they looked like the Japanese rice he remembered. Himori noticed the grains were larger and different from before. Eager to try the new flavor, she filled her rice bowl. Masato warned it was too soon but joined in the excitement. Rushing to the factory, he began processing the rice, hoping for good results. Later, he cooked all 4 types of rice. Masato was pleased with the result. The rice met his expectations, and the girls, eager to try, asked which one to taste first. Masato tried the first variant. A wave of emotion washed over him when he tasted it. This was the flavor he had been seeking since his reincarnation. Himawari savored the Chuni's rice. She was quietly amazed that chewing could make it taste so good. Masato found the rice much better than before. It was a bit too sticky, so he suggested trying a variant with more amylose. I know, he insisted, it was already tasty enough. Wanting to try the other variants, the self decided to sample them. Next, they tasted the remaining types. The self-declared person said they were all delicious. I know Worry asked Masato which he preferred. After thinking it over, he chose the variant Amylose 17. They praised its flavor as worthy of a brand and comparable to Kashi Hikari rice. When Hinori in the Silt asked about Koshi Hikari, Masato brushed it off, saying it wasn't important because they wouldn't know it. He asked me to convert all the rice seedlings to Amylose 17 for bulk cultivation. I assured him I would handle it. Masato watched her cast magic on the rice plants, marveled at the potential of selective breeding, and as a former science major felt electrified by the possibilities. He began imagining improved crops, such as pest-resistant varieties and onions that don't make you cry when sliced, innovations impossible in his previous world. An idea suddenly struck him and he spoke up. The startled Jules asked him what was wrong. Masato said he had come up with something extraordinary. Bringing out a luxury ingredient, he remembered. He proposed improving Matsutek, a rare and expensive mushroom prized for its strong aroma and rich flavor, because it could not be farmed and was therefore scarce. Masato suggested selective breeding could produce abundant Matsutakrouf, and as Wary realized this could lead to a bounty of delectable dishes. After they finished eating, the group went outside. I was pleased to learn that those mushrooms grow in the mountains and vowed to find them. Masato remembered visiting those mountains to gather wild vegetables, thinking the varied plants might include Matsutake. Noting the girls' enthusiasm, he expected us to find it. The girls set the dining table again to eat. Spotting a nearby tree, Masato urged them to settle down and tidy up first. He immediately recognized it as a Japanese red pine. Using a microscope, he examined the bark, spotted mats, and collected mycelium threads that grow only near those pines. Using alchemy, he made a swab and took a small branch. He said the myceline and pinewood would let him grow an improved Matsutake. For now, he asked the eager girls to put the bowls away. At home, Masato opened his laptop and launched the Genome editor. Analyzing the Matsutake's genetic data, he examined how it absorbs nutrients. Noticing checkboxes labeled saprophytic and mycorrhizal, he told the puzzled girls they described the rare Matsutake mycelium. He noted mushrooms fall into 2 categories: saprophytic species that feed on decaying wood or leaves and can be cultivated. Mycorrhizal attach to living tree roots to draw nutrients and cannot be cultivated. Mycorrhizal mushrooms such as Matsutake are hard to grow. Masato proposed converting Matsutake into a saprophytic type to simplify cultivation. I'm worried. I realized this would allow mass Matsutake production. The sylphs told Masato to entrust the rest to them. Masato applied the edited data, and the silts improved the mycelium. Next, he moved the enhanced mycelium into the floating island's final greenhouse and used growth accelerators to speed its development. He also had to divide the mycelium into spawn that resembled pieces of wood. Confused, Himawari asked how wood helped mushrooms grow. Masato explained the role of Japanese red pine branches. He planted it in the soil, applied a growth accelerator, and summoned blessed rain clouds to simulate 30 years of growth instantly. In an instant, the branch grew into a tall, sturdy tree. Masato grew 7 more logs and placed them close together. The mushroom farm setup was declared complete. Next, workers drilled holes in the logs and placed the mushroom spawn. They then arranged the logs into a formation. It was called the centipede assembly. Finally, they triggered rain laced with growth accelerators, and mushrooms sprang up immediately. The mycelium turned into mushrooms that emerged from the logs one by one. I was astonished by the sulfur joist and the abundance of mushrooms. Masato told them to start harvesting immediately, and after they finished collecting, he asked the self to summon rain again. After 2 harvest cycles are complete, it collected a large quantity of maths to take mushrooms for hemwari and looked like an all-you-can-eat feast with 276 mushrooms counted. Masato decided there was plenty for everyone. He thanked the girls for their help. Masato told the Silt, who was thrilled for dinner, to look forward to the meal. Choosing simple charcoal grilling, he used his super alchemy skill to build a grill. He produced pure carbon, wood, and beer. Masato demonstrated his powers with the carbon-witness charcoal, extracting only the alcohol from the beer. Using fire magic, he lit the grill. Prepare the mats you will take. Using purification magic, he removed the dirt and trimmed the tough stem base. He sliced the mushroom cap, cut it in half, lightly scored the top, and sprinkled it with salt. While he grilled, he suddenly deployed barrier magic. I know where he was startled and asked why. The 5-layer barrier hovered over the mushrooms as they cooked. Himawari said only Masato would cook with that kind of magic, and Masato, unsure that was true, was captivated by the mushrooms oozing juices. Minutes later they were ready, and even I could see how appetizing they looked. I know he asked to eat. Masato suggested waiting and explained a special way to enjoy them. He showed how to tear the mushroom along the earlier cut and eat it. The steam smelled incredible when he inhaled. He bit into it and his eyes widened. The texture and flavor almost brought him to tears of joy. I felt wary and found his slow eating odd. She doubted it was really that delicious. After a bite, she immediately praised its superb taste, struggling to describe the flavor. Masato suggested grilling 10 more mushrooms and serving them with beer for dinner. Everyone cheered and their happy voices carried outside. The next day, Masato went back to the floating island to tend the rice again. A sleepy, homesick worker grumbled about starting rice work early. The Ristai self muttered nonsense, and Masato thanked them for joining us. He explained his goal to grow a milast 17 rice properly and said he needed more seed potatoes to secure enough seeds. A bigger rice harvest, he noted, would allow more rice dishes. The girls suddenly became alert and dropped their restlessness. The Silt eagerly vowed to do her best. Surprised by their energy, Masato oversaw a bountiful harvest. At the factory, Masato fed the rice into the thresher, which counted 6,003 grains, enough for about 1,500 plants. He noted they still needed more rice seeds. He told the girls who used the area as a base to plant more seedlings and expand their harvest. On the floating island, he cast an anti-physical barrier spell to form a large box in the fields. He marked it as the place to plant rice seeds and used water magic to fill it with water at 10 degrees Celsius mixed with powder. 10 days later, he raised the water to 30 degrees and waited 12 hours for seed germination. Worried, I asked if they'd plant in the usual spot, but Masato said it would be different this time. Enchanting another field, he treated the soil specially for growing rice. After sowing the seeds, blessed rain with a small amount of growth accelerator helped the rice reach 15 centimeters. Masato told the Sulfs to pull up the seedlings, tie them into bundles of 4, and plant them in the paddies. The sills beside Masato and him worked together smoothly. After planting, the blessed rain that came on its own mixed with the growth accelerator. The ripened rice was harvested. The process was repeated twice before thrashing at the factory. Masato calculated more than 960 million grains. It was enough to plant 1,600 hectares, and he declared they had produced enough seeds so the future harvest would yield food. Honking to get the girls to cheer, Masato abruptly asked whether they felt tired. They insisted they could keep going. Acknowledging their stamina, he warned them against overexertion. The next day he returned and announced it was the last day to plant rice. He unleashed a huge magic circle. It instantly transformed most fields into paddies. The self rallied everyone to give their best. They planted, and within minutes the rice was ready to harvest. Walking through the fields, Masato praised their hard work. They noted the immense harvesting task ahead. An idea struck me about this dress. He walked off silently and made a worried call after him. Masato stayed focused and did not respond. He raised his hand to activate his special great architecture skill, and a building appeared instantly. Inside, the girl stayed because of its unique design and asked him what his purpose was. Masato used his space-time tuning skill to reveal that it was a vehicle manufacturing factory. He watched the machine assemble rapidly, feeling amazed or worried. Within minutes, the combine harvester was finished. I asked about it, and Masato said it was an iQuip machine that collects rice automatically. The The harvester moved across the field on its own. The girls looked puzzled. The next morning Masada slept soundly until Himawari woke him, then asked what was happening. I was full of worries, and her mother wanted to visit. Masada was fine with it but curious about her sudden interest. Himawari explained that her mother longed for his cooking, still remembering a special meal and wanting to taste it again. A warrior wanted to tell her mother right away, but Masato told her to wait and contacted the warrior's mother through the sills. He decided to send her something because she planned to visit, which initially puzzled both him and Wari's mother. Masato directed enhancement magic through the silps to her. A sudden surge of strength surprised her. Masato said the boost happened over the past 4 hours and 30 minutes. Moved by his thoughtfulness, she was touched. Masato shrugged it off, saying it was no trouble. Himawari's mother immediately said she'd come over. After the call, when the Sato said it was time to prepare, I asked worriedly what he'd cook. Masada said they could make plenty with the ingredients they had. The smell of food when her mother arrived pulled her in. Masada noticed her perfect timing. They presented matsutake rice and a miso mayo stir-fry. Hanawari looked surprised by the unfamiliar dish. Gathered around the table, they offered thanks. Masato tasted his creation, pleased that the miso mayo brought out its clean sweetness. I'm cautious, but she found the flavor addictive, and her mother agreed. Masato was pleased they enjoyed his food and encouraged them to try the matsutake rice. He felt it was perfectly executed. Himawari praised how the mushroom aroma and soy sauce infused the rice. Her mother was just as impressed. I'm wary, explained Masato's dedication to choosing the best ingredients and perfecting the flavor, and how his mother recognized his effort. They listened as Jame Wari boasted about Masato's talents and kept eating. After the meal, I was worried, and she said it was her first time trying such delicious dishes. Her mother remembered that among humans, top cooks were called royal chefs. She suggested that Masato pursue it, but he declined politely. Worried, his mother seemed confused because she did not recognize his cooking ability. Masato said he would be satisfied if Japanese cuisine became more popular here so more people could experience it. To reach many people with his food, he believed he needed real chef skills. He hoped someone would help him achieve this. Vendors at a nearby market noticed a girl wandering. She said one thing: she could not abandon her chef dream. He pitied her. If not for a past misfortune, she might be a professional now. After losing her left arm, the girl saw her dreams fall apart. After dining with Himawari's mother, Masato went to the guild to sell his crops. The old appraiser waited in the guild's warehouse. Carol had heard Masato had brought new crops and seasonings. Masato confirmed he had stored them in magic cards. Crops appear one by one. First, carrots rich in ultra-beta-carotene help smooth wrinkles. Next, the special onions boosted immunity, fought bacteria and viruses, and neutralized poisons and curses. Tranquility aims to dispel anger, anxiety, and stress. Holy burdock helped digestion and boosted fat burning to support weight loss. Masato used taro to temporarily increase all stats by 10, boosting both physical and magical power. Finally, his rice wine removed purines and safely helped prevent gout without causing gas. Masato revealed a vinegar that increased HP and MP recovery 100-fold. Stunned, the old man found the crops and seasonings almost unbelievable. He doubted taro could raise stats, and Masato downplayed how strong the effects were. Carol was intrigued by the yam that eased negative emotions, and Masato Muse, the psychiatrist from his old world, would be floored by it. He also wondered why the appraisal skill gives the yans and carrots such odd names. Masato revealed he had more to share and offered them some of the food he had prepared to sample. Carol wondered why he had bothered to cook for himself. Masato explained that raw ingredients would not show their quality. He asked them to taste the dish and assess its market potential. He served matsutake fried rice and an amicaps dish. The old man, hastily tasting the masab dish, was moved by its deliciousness and by discovering its cancer-fighting properties. Carol praised the rice for its chewiness and mushroom flavor. Masada saw they enjoyed it and decided to make more. Carol thanked him for the meal, and the old man was impressed by Masato's crop improvements. He kept calling him the ultimate farmer, and an embarrassed Masato asked him to stop. The old man remained astonished that Masato had grown over 100 rare matsutake mushrooms from a single log, pushing the limits of nature. Masato then showed the huge amount of produce he was selling, and a worried Carol asked if he really planned to sell so much. The old man told Carol to make sure every sale went through Cole. Carol promised to bring everything back when she returned. Masato remembered something and gave Carol more than 70 movement use cards, feeling relieved at first. Carol struggled as the cards spilled from her hands. The old man warned that such items should not be handled lightly. Nervous, Carol promised to alert the staff right away. Masato appreciated her urgency, but doubted it could happen that fast. The old man said Cole had a magic tracker that could find items. Masato asked if they knew where Cole was now. To help the guild move surplus items faster, Masato gave them the cards to make the job easier. Carol conveys his excitement about the sales update. They agreed to sell quickly and report back, and Masato thanked them. Before he left, he said he would prepare the next crop batch. The old man wondered what Masato's next bold idea would be, and Carol felt the same anticipation. Masato told them to stay tuned because he had already picked his next project. The next day, Masato and Himawari went to a new place. He thanked her, leading him to the sugarcane fields. A worried person asked him his purpose. Masato said he planned to make another seasoning.